Welcome to the module of the Works Clearinghouse Single Case Design Standards training focused on the Study Review Guide. This module provides an introduction to the WWC Study Review Guide, or SRG, for single case designs. The Study Review Guide is a tool used by WWC reviewers to help them review the study against the WWC standards and to code study findings for WWC products. At the end of this module, you will be familiar with the different parts of the Study Review Guide and the information that belongs in each section. The current version of the Study Review Guide for single case designs and a user's guide containing instructions can be found on the WWC website at the URL displayed below, and is also linked from the training homepage. The Study Review Guide for single case designs is an Excel spreadsheet that has 7 total sheets and 6 sheets that a reviewer may need to use while performing a review. The first sheet, the SRG information sheet, simply contains version information about the Study Review Guide, including the release date. Reviewers do not need to interact with this tab, and the rest of the module will focus on the 6 sheets that reviewers may need to interact with. The main tab on the spreadsheet contains information regarding the WWC's single case design standards and overall study characteristics. You will be asked to provide page numbers and narrative details for your selections in this section. The Review tab contains information regarding each experiment's measurement and effect size information, if appropriate. The Data tab contains the observation level data drawn from the study for the purposes of estimating an effect size, if effect size estimation is appropriate. The Plots tab is used to save a copy of plots corresponding to the Data tab when data were extracted from plots. The Author Query and Response tab contains questions for the corresponding author if there are questions about the study which may affect the final WWC rating. Finally, the Summary tab on the Study Review Guide spreadsheet contains a quick overview, summarizing outcomes and experiment ratings. Before discussing the different parts of the Single Case Design Study Review Guide, we want to offer you some tips for completing a WWC review using the Study Review Guides. Before you start a review, carefully read the review protocol you will use for the review. It may contain special requirements for the study sample. It may also provide specific guidelines for single case designs, such as study contexts where the minimum number of observations per phase required for a study to meet standards with or without reservations is reduced. Read the study completely through one time before beginning the review. This will allow you to have a sense of the study before completing the review. For instance, pieces of information that you need to complete one part of a review may not all be located in a single part of the study manuscript. Use complete sentences when writing review notes and completing the study narrative fields. Also, check your study review guide for spelling or grammatical errors. Clearly document in the review notes any assumptions you made in the course of the review. For instance, if the study does not provide any evidence that the timing of the intervention was decided by someone other than the study author or interventionist, then you will generally assume that the experimenter was in control of when the intervention was administered. Clearly document in the review notes any questions you have for the authors that may affect the final study disposition. Include study page references in the review notes and the study narrative. If you have questions regarding what constitutes an experiment within a single case design study, please consult topic area leadership. Now we begin our overview of the Study Review Guide. As we work through the parts of the Study Review Guide, note that the Study Review Guide available on the Works Clearinghouse website may look slightly different from these examples. Various parts of the Study Review Guide have been resized to make them more legible for this presentation. At the top of the main tab, there will be information about the study review, including the study ID, your WWC reviewer number, the date of the review, and a citation from the study. Much of this information is likely to be completed by WWC topic area leadership when assigning you a study to review. Ensure that the information is complete and correct. The next section in the main tab will identify the standards version and the review protocol version used to complete the study review. Ensure that these sections are filled out correctly. This section will also detail the name of the intervention that is the focus of the review. The next section is the screening criterion section. The fields in this section will help a reviewer to ensure that the study meets the general requirements for the WWC to review a study, the eligibility requirements for the study to be reviewed as a single case design, and the specific eligibility requirements laid out in the review protocol. When completing this section of the study review guide, reviewers should always provide supporting details and study pages. After you have completed the screening section of the study review guide, indicate the final disposition of the study. If the study does not meet the WWC screening requirements for multiple reasons, copy and paste the screening disposition row and select as many additional disposition codes as are necessary. Provide a full explanation of the disposition codes in the fields provided. If the study passes the screening requirements for WWC review, then your review will move on to the next section of the main tab of the study review guide. In this section, you will assess whether the entire study or some of the experiments contained in the study meet the WWC's single case design standards. Once again, make sure to provide supporting details and study pages. As you proceed through the study review guide, there will be links to other sections of the study review guide. Clicking on the link will take you to those sections. Complete those sections of the study review guide before proceeding to the next part of the main tab. Once you have completed the second section of the main tab of the study review guide, you will arrive at the study rating for each experiment and the study rating for the study overall. Select the highest rating for any experiment in the study, which will be the rating assigned to the study overall. Provide an explanation for that study rating and disposition code. Then, provide a rating for each experiment in the study, and an explanation for the rating and disposition code. Copy and paste these sections as necessary to provide complete information for each experiment in the study. If there was any information not present in the study that might affect the final rating of the study or any experiments in the study, in this part of the study review guide, you will indicate what information is required to complete the review and how that might impact the rating. The final stage of the main tab of the study review guide is the study details page. This first section of the study details should always be completed regardless of whether the study meets WWC's single case design standards. Finally, for any study that does meet the WWC SCD standards with or without reservations, you will complete the Data tab if effect size estimation is appropriate for the study's design. You will also complete as much of the Review tab as possible. Then you will provide additional study details, such as the setting, the study's design, information about the sample size, and information about the different study conditions. For any study that meets the WWC SCD standards with or without reservations, you will also be asked to report on any formal visual analysis conducted by the primary study authors and any conclusions they drew about the functional relation between the intervention and the outcome or outcomes. Note that the WWC does not ask study reviewers to complete their own visual analysis. We only ask that reviewers report any visual analysis performed by the original study authors. Now we move on to the Review tab of the Study Review Guide. This section contains some important information about study measures, the domains the measures belong to, the design of the study, the sample, and when the outcome was gathered. This section of the Review tab helps the reviewer to determine if the outcome meets the WWC's requirements for an eligible outcome. There is also a place to note any concerns the reviewer might have about a measure if they are uncertain whether or not a measure meets the WWC's requirements. The next part of the review section is for those studies which meet standards and for which an effect size can be estimated. At this time, the WWC is only able to estimate a design comparable effect size for treatment reversal or withdrawal designs with 3 or more cases, or multiple baseline or multiple probe designs that have 3 or more participant cases. Finally, the Study Review Guide contains a section for documenting the reliability of any outcomes extracted from plots when reconciling reviews. If you are performing individual reviews of studies, it is not necessary for you to complete this section. This is simply a placeholder for topic area leadership documentation. The Data tab is a place to record the outcomes for any studies that meet WWC single case design standards with or without reservations, and for which the WWC will estimate an effect size. Fill out every single column, and then add any additional columns necessary to uniquely identify each data point. For this tab, each data point should be its own row. The Plots tab is a place to record any plots whose data were extracted for effect size estimation purposes. If you are extracting data from plots to estimate an effect size, you should ensure that all of the plots are saved in the Plots tab. We would like to take a moment to remind you about when to extract data from plots and save those plots in the Plots tab. If no effect size can be estimated for a single case designs study that meets standards, either because there is no effect size for that design or there are not enough units in the experiment, then it is not necessary to record data from the study. If the study meets WWC single case design standards and an effect size can be calculated, the data should already be available in some way. Remember, to be eligible to meet the WWC's single case design standards, raw data must be available in either tabular or graphical format. There are 3 possible ways to obtain data for estimating an effect size, and the WWC prefers them in the following order. First, if the data are available in tabular format in the study, use the data drawn from the table to estimate an effect size. Many single-case design studies will not have data available in tabular format, and if so, move on to the next step. When data are available in only plot format, submit an author query for the data in tabular format. The results of this author query will not affect the final study rating, but the WWC would prefer to use the most accurate data for effect size estimation. Finally, if the authors do not respond to an author query, the data should be extracted directly from the study. There are many different software applications available to extract data from plots. Existing research on the topic of data extraction from single-case design plots suggests that all of the software built for this purpose will allow for the reliable and valid extraction of data from studies. The primary difference between the different tools are their cost and ease of use. We have provided one citation regarding the use of software to extract data from plots. If you have questions about the right software to use in your own review, please consult the existing literature about extraction software. If you are performing a study review for the WWC, consult your topic area leadership on their preferred extraction software. Next, we will present you with an example of data extraction from a fictional example plot, which is designed to mirror the experience of extracting data from a real study. This data extraction example was completed using the software WebPlot Digitizer. Although the Works Clearinghouse does not endorse any particular software, we provide this example using the WebPlot Digitizer software to illustrate how a reviewer might extract data from the plots in a single case design study that meets standards and uses a single case design type for which a design comparable effect size is estimable. The first step in extracting data from study plots will usually be to save the images of the plots separately from the study PDF. Most PDF reading software has an option to save some part of the document currently being displayed. This will usually be called taking a snapshot, or a screenshot. Most operating systems will also have options for saving all or part of what is being displayed on the screen and saving it as a separate image, usually called a screenshot. Once you have saved the plots, it is time to load the image or images into your data extraction software. In this example, we are demonstrating loading the images from the File menu. You can also drag the saved image file and drop it into the app. If you have opened the image in Excel or some other image viewing software, it is also possible to right-click on an image to copy it and then paste it directly into the app. The next step in most data extraction software will be to calibrate the software so it understands the X and Y axis displayed on your plots. In this example, using WebPlot Digitizer, you would select axes along the left side and then select the Add Calibration button. You will then choose the plot type. For most single-case design plots, the correct choice will be a two-dimensional X and Y plot. which is the first option in the list. Select the Align Axis button to move to the next step. If you are using the Web Plot Digitizer software, you will want to pay careful attention to the directions that pop up at this stage of data extraction. You will need to align the X and Y axis by selecting 4 calibration points in the exact order specified in the pop-up box. First, you will select a point on the X-axis close to the leftmost side of the plot. Second, you will select a point on the X-axis close to the rightmost side of the plot. Third, you will select a point on the Y-axis close to the bottom of the axis. Fourth, and finally, you will select a point on the Y-axis close to the top. When defining your axis in this manner, it is usually safest to start with a point on the X-axis that corresponds to the earliest observation in the plot. In many software packages, you can place your initial point using your mouse, and then fine-tune the exact location using the arrow keys on your keyboard. If the software offers a zoomed-in view, this can help you arrive as close as possible to the correct location on the X-axis. You can use similar logic to help you place your second X-axis calibration point at a spot that corresponds to the final observation. On the Y-axis, it is likely ideal to place your first calibration point at the lowest non-zero value on the Y-axis, and then place your second calibration point at the largest value on the Y-axis. It is important that you are able to identify the exact X values of your two X-axis calibration points and the exact Y values of your two Y-axis calibration points, because you will have to provide these values to the data extraction software. Once you have placed all 4 calibration points on the plot axis, you still have the opportunity to adjust the locations of these calibration points. Select any calibration point with your mouse to adjust the location. When you are happy with the location of your calibration points, select Complete under the magnification box on the right side. You will then be prompted to provide values corresponding to your 4 calibration points. Enter the values in the corresponding boxes. You should leave the optional checkbox alone at the default of not being selected. If the Y-axis is not perfectly vertical and the X-axis is not perfectly horizontal in the image you're extracting from, the software will correct for that so long as you leave the optional box unchecked. Select OK to move to the next step. Sometimes you will have more than one plot in a single image. For instance, if you have a multiple baseline design across 3 participants, each participant will have their own outcome plot saved as one image. It will be necessary to calibrate the software separately for each plot. As a default, the Web Plot Digitizer software names the first axis calibration you create as XY. You should select the axis calibration and give it a descriptive name, such as the name of the participant the plot corresponds to. Selecting the axis name also gives you the option to tweak your calibration if you believe you have made an error when defining the plot axis. If you need to calibrate the axis for more than one plot in an image, make sure to calibrate each plot before you move on to the next step of data extraction. Select the axis option along the left side again, and then select Add Calibration to start a new axis calibration. Follow the steps outlined previously to complete calibration for each plot in the image. Once axis calibration is complete, the next step is to extract data from the plots. Each outcome from each participant will need to be a separate data set in the software. Prior to adding any additional data sets, there will be one default data set in the list. Ensure that the dataset has the axis calibration that corresponds to the participant you want to extract data from, and then select Rename Dataset to provide the dataset with a descriptive name, ideally one that corresponds to both the participant and their outcomes. Once the dataset name is selected, you can begin collecting data points from the plot by selecting the points on the plot with your mouse. Similar to when you calibrated the axis, the magnification box on the right is available to help you select the points. For most single-case designs, it is going to be more important for you to center the data collection point on the Y-axis than it is to center on the X-axis. In most cases, the sequential ordering of the X-axis allows for any errors in those values to be corrected manually without error. That is often not true of values on the y-axis. Try to be consistent when placing data extraction points. It is relatively easy to locate the points on the center of a circle or a square. If the points are labeled with more complex symbols, such as a triangle, pick a location on the shape and try to use the same location for each data point during extraction. Finally, when you are in data collection mode, you should be able to switch freely between adding new points, adjusting points you have already placed, or deleting any stray points you may have placed by accident. Once data extraction for an individual outcome within a given case is complete, it is always good practice to check the extracted values to ensure that they are reasonable. Select the dataset and then select View Data. The data can be made easier to read by selecting the number of digits to 2 and selecting Fixed Number Formatting. Check to ensure that the values do not seem very different from the values observed in the plot. In the example shown here, the x-axis values appear close to the appropriate whole number values of 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. The y values also appear relatively close to the value that is on the plot. Some measurement error is anticipated when extracting data from plots. This is expected and acceptable, but it is why the WWC prefers to use raw tabular data and only extracts from plots as a last resort. The data in this example look reasonable, and if preferred, it would be possible to download these extracted data points as a dataset using the Copy to Clipboard or Download CSV options. However, we suggest downloading the entire dataset once extraction is complete. Select Close when you are done inspecting values to return to the data extraction process. To begin extracting outcome data for a new participant, select Datasets, and then select Add Dataset. Enter a descriptive name into the box labeled Name, and then select Add Single Dataset. Ensure that the correct axis calibration is selected under the description of the dataset on the right side. Once you have created a new dataset, you can extract data corresponding to that case and outcome as described above. Follow this stepwise process of creating a dataset for a case and outcome, setting the data extraction points, and inspecting the values in the dataset to ensure that they are reasonable until you have captured all of the outcome data of interest from the image. Once all of the outcome data of interest has been captured, the data tables can be exported as a comma-separated values file, or CSV file, which is a table format that is readable in most spreadsheet and statistical software packages. The final step in the data extraction process involves moving data from the exported tables into the Data tab of the Study Review Guide. The data exported from the software typically will not be in exactly the same format as the Study Review Guide, so you will often need to adjust the data to ensure it is displayed appropriately in the Study Review Guide. Data in the Study Review Guide should be organized so that a single observation corresponds to an individual row, with enough information about the participant, outcome, phase, and timing to uniquely identify that observation. This completes our example demonstrating how to extract data from single-case design plots using the Web Plot Digitizer software. We will now discuss the final two tabs of the Study Review Guide. If it is necessary to reach out to authors via Author Query for additional information to complete a review, the Author Query tab is a place to draft any questions you might have for the authors. Any response to the Author Query can also be recorded here. Finally, the Summary tab provides a quick overview of all the experiments in the review and the study ratings after you have completed a study review. Thank you for watching this series of training modules on the WWC's Single Case Design Standards. As a reminder, if you would like to become certified in the WWC's Single Case Design Standards, please contact the help desk at the website listed on this slide in order to receive your exam.